All right,
I tried every way I could.
let's get rolling.
The way the thing goes at the end, you can unhinge the whole thing this way, but you can't this way.
Ignore the TV behind me for a moment. Event,
Like
yeah, we're not going to watch Game Day today. Well, you know what though? This is a good idea. So for all those folks that are like, well, if church runs too late, I missed the football game. We'll just turn the football game down here, and you can come down and catch it. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna try and connect to it eventually. Yeah. Well, we've already talked about maybe doing like a movie night or something down here. Yeah. So this is it. This is the last week of this talk. We're done with words after this. No more words. But reminder: next week, Brandy Johnson and Chris Iosa are going to be here. Nope, it's next week. Oh, I'm sorry, Cheryl. You have to show up next week too. So they're going to be here next week to talk about love. But how many people know about Loved One and or the Father's Heart? I mean, Mike, obviously. You can see a couple hands, okay. They'll tell you more next week, but just as a bit of a plug, Loved One is a relatively new nonprofit that has grown exponentially in the last 5 years. And the reason that they've grown is, number one, obviously homelessness continues to be an issue both in Clackamas County and Multnomah County. But that isn't the sole responsibility or the sole reason. They've grown because they're competent, but also because their competency has led them to getting contracts from Clackamas County. And so and Brandy will be able to tell you the whole story, but I think they started out with a team of 2, and now they have over 50 employees that do. And I know there's a lot of talk, especially in Multnomah County. You know, one of the things that I keep hearing from the mayoral candidates is complaining about, you know, nonprofits that are getting all this money and not doing anything. I don't know how it works in Multnomah County, but that is not the case with Loved One. In fact, they are understaffed relative to the need that exists in our county. So you'll hear about that. And Chris, so Brandy is I don't know what her technical title is, but she is one of the founders of Loved One, and she may be the CEO now, but it's a nonprofit, so I guess she wouldn't be a CEO. She'd be a president, of Loved One. And Chris is the new manager of Father's Heart, and Father's Heart has a history that goes way back, and but they have and I know a little bit of the history. I don't know a lot of it. It was started by a couple that had a specific vision in mind, and since then it has gone through a couple of iterations. But Father's Heart now is expanding the work that they do. They're in Oregon City, but they're expanding the work that they do in Oregon City because they are basically the shelter space in Clackamas County that is open 24 hours a day. So they'll tell you all about that stuff. But that's my plug. Show up next week. But then the following week, November 3rd, we're going to have our town hall, which is going to be covering the corner property funds. So you'll hear a report on the funds that have been spent. But then primarily what we're going to talk about is, what do we want to do? What do we want to do with the money that we have, but also how can we use that money, and what mission do we want to do together? Oh, it is. But this is the good change, right? Fall back. Yeah, this is where I get an extra hour of sleep, not spring forward. Cursed be thy name. But so that's coming up the 3rd, and then the first Sunday in December, which I think is December 1st. That sounds right. December 1st is going to be a second town hall, and it's going to be, well, the 2 things that I want to talk about is I want to talk about community visitation and potentially Eucharistic ministry, but I also want to talk about, I want to revisit worship as a topic. I've got a couple of specific agenda items that I want to get at there, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. All right, words. Hold on. Let me get out my sheets. Oh no, I left them at home. Okay, never mind. We won't get out the sheets. I changed bags. So we had pretty much hit in one form or another most of the words in the list. There were a couple of leftover words that came up. I think righteousness was one of them. That was it. Righteousness, glory. The other one we didn't talk about, which I think would be fun to chat about today, is the omnis. Yeah, those are interesting. And I'm just listing things. We'll get to it in a sec. The other one, which we've kind of been talking about this entire time, but we never have explicitly talked about, is the big one, is this word, right? Does that word bear discussing in terms of meaning? So
Have we covered good news?
we did. We talked about, well, evangelism.
But that term specifically.
In terms of gospel or good news. We did tangentially, but I'll put it up here. All these things tie together, right? All these things tie together. Judgment, thank you. There was one more. No E.
No, I got the cheat sheet.
Okay. What do you want to talk about first? Glory. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Hit me with the ruler. How many variations of How many variations of that song have there been? So what's glory? What does glory mean to you? Okay, what don't you, sorry, and again, the purpose of this is not to explain it, right? It's to talk about what does it mean to us, even if it lacks meaning. What does it mean, big picture, and then what did it used to mean? Oh, isn't that weird? Has anybody had that experience? Semantic satiation? Could be, yeah, right, propaganda. But where you say a word so many times it stops feeling like a word, it just noise. Ah. All glory and honor be to you, O Christ. Yep. Mm. Well, okay. I mean, let's talk about this from a common usage point of view. Where do we hear this word now? Yeah. Going to glory. Going to glory. Well, specifically, I would say that is black church language. I'm going to glory. This, and I would say too, I'm generalizing a bit. This word is used more often, I think, in African American contexts, in my experience. Is that ring true for anybody else, or? Yeah. Old glory. So if you were to throw out a definition or synonyms of this, what does this mean? Oh, from an experiential. Okay. Bliss, praise.
I get good and great and happiness out of it. Out of glory. Somebody that's good.
Glory, yeah, loud. Loud. All glory, loud, and honor to you, Redeemer King. Ruby, what do you think? Extra super special. Glorious.
Oh, Lord, that's good.
I like that. I like that. Extra super special. Yeah. Well, we could shorten this. We're going to call this ESS. Extra super special. Sounds like a McDonald's menu option. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Yeah. Love. But yeah.
I think about the Christmas time when we sing Gloria in Excelsis Deo. Somebody,
Gloria. But that is the word hasn't changed much, by the way, in 2,000 years. So glory, Glory in English, came from glory, Glorie in Old French, which came from gloria in Latin. So hasn't changed much. This is one of those words where you can very easily, tell people that you know Latin. Is it that about the African American regiment in Massachusetts? Yeah. With Denzel Washington, yeah. Sorry. Oh boy, my aiming abilities are bad. There it goes. Okay. Sorry, continue. Want to see if this works. It's connecting. Hey! Voila. Okay. Let's look this up. Ta-da!
oh, neat.
Okay. So what does it mean? Can everybody read that fairly decently, or should I zoom in a little bit?
Make it a little bit bigger. Our eyes are old.
Gosh, you old people. You tell me I'm not old. Whoop, I went too big. Maybe I didn't. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to do that maybe. No? There we go. There, is that better?
Yeah, that's good.
I don't know why I have to look at the Quartal ad, but whatever. Praise, honor, or distinction extended by common consent. What does that mean? Extended by common consent. We all agree. A praise, honor, or distinction extended by common consent. B, worshipful praise, honor, and thanksgiving. So again, how dictionaries work is you have the numbers on the left are indicating separate definitions. The A and the B are indicating sub-definitions of that separate definition. Definition 2, something that secures praise or renown or a distinguished quality or asset. And I find that the example sentences to be helpful here. So the glory of a brilliant career, or the glory of the city as its Gothic cathedral. Do these definitions fit into some of the words that we've talked about? So what's in that context? What is something that it's a glorious? The Notre Dame, is that glorious? That's the quality part of it. Yeah. What about the Moda Center? Is that glorious? But this is interesting. What makes the Moda Center different from the Notre Dame? That was glorious. Yeah. The game-winning tray. Oh yeah. Okay. Hold on. And this word, by the way, is a perfect example of, again, Jill was talking at the beginning. What was that phrase? Semantic satiation, where you can use a word so often it just kind of turns into, we have so many different ways that this word is used. A state of great gratification or exaltation when she's acting in her glory. A height of prosperity or achievement, ancient Rome in its glory. And then finally, this might be Ruby's extra super special. Great beauty and splendor, magnificence. That's a great word, but hard to pronounce sometimes, especially when you're reading it. Something marked by beauty or resplendence, a perfect glory of a day, or the splendor and beatific happiness of heaven. Now we're going into more religious connotation. Yeah. So broadly, eternity. So who said I'm going to glory? Yeah, Andy. I'm going to glory. So that would be that use of it, right? I'm going to eternity. And then finally, a ring or spot of light. Yeah. You learned something new. A halo appearing around the shadow of an object is a glory. Hey, don't question Merriam-Webster. Yeah, the Oreo. But in just, again, understanding the English language, these are all the definitions for the noun glory. How do we use glory as a verb? Gloried or glorifying. To rejoice proudly. To rejoice proudly. Do we glorify? Yeah. All the angels, yeah. Might be a verb tense. All glory, loud, and honor be to you, Redeemer King. And then finally, the interjection, glory be. Anybody here ever use that? Glory be. I don't know why I automatically use my Southern preacher voice for that. Yeah, I'd be right. So, what we've learned about this word is that there are a broad swath of definitions, but they all kind of seem to get back to the same thing, which again, Ruby, thank you for this definition. It's extra super special. It's extra super special. What a... Does it? How so? In the verb sense of it. I'm glorifying God. What does it mean for a human being to achieve glory or to earn glory? Renown Renown or honor. Yeah, very positive renown. I'm guessing that the film title Glory might apply in that form, right? But the glory that regiment earned through their service. Also eternity if they die. Yeah, I'm going to glory. Yeah. Sacrifice might be the way that glory is achieved. Yeah, and in that regard, yeah, that could become a bit synonymous. Yeah. There's no wrong. If you've heard a word used in a way, right, that's in a certain sense a valid expression of it. Oh, what a glorious morning. It does make you feel good, yeah. And not to put words in mouths, but from a religious context, is there something to that? If you wake up in the morning, you say, "Oh, what a glorious morning." In a sense, are you saying, is that a praise? Is that a doxo? Is that thank you God for the gifts that you have given me? Can it be? It maybe is a better way to put that. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's kind of cool too. The sky is blue and it's warm. Amen. The sun is out. Yeah.
Glory be. Glory be to God.
And I can say the same thing on a foggy day. Yeah. Yeah. So we've talked a bit about what it means now. What did it mean? And I don't want to shoehorn the conversation, but I want to go back to a word that came up here, which I think we need to talk about a little bit, which is this word. Because I think our concept of glory from an ancient perspective is probably linked to this concept in a way. Honor. What does honor mean in a modern context? Esteem. I should write these down. Admiration. Yeah. Who do we attribute honor to as a title? Judges. Honorific. Yeah. Honor. Oh, I don't know why I was going to write honor again. Esteem. Yeah.
Well, in the commandments, honor thy father and mother. Huh? They're
Extra super special.
And if you got good ones, you were real glorified.
What does it mean to use honor as a verb? What does it mean to honor somebody? You're showing respect. Okay, that's another good word up here. Does this word relate back here at all? Think so? Yeah. Exalt. Oh, great word. Great word, Paula. Exalt. Apologies, as always, for my penmanship. Exalt. His majesty. His majesty. Anybody ever think of that word? Magnificent. Yeah. His majesty. What does majesty mean outside the context of monarchy? Majestic, right? Would majesty perhaps be listed as a synonym here somewhere? Yeah. It is. Yeah. Yeah. Does majesty describe how you're dressed and how wealthy you look and how powerful you look, maybe?
Out of the ordinary.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah. What's the implication of referring to a king as your majesty? It's the power, yeah. It's also the implication that the king is extra super special, right? Again, not to overuse Ruby's example, but it's kind of a great catch-all, isn't it? When you give obeisance to, or when you give honor or respect to somebody, and again, thankfully we don't have to do this, not being in a monarchy, right? We don't have to call anybody your majesty. We're not, Not yet. Yeah. Yeah. Not yet. um, but in a in a monarchy, again, this is a bit of a generalization. You do that whether or not they're deserving of that, right? Because their position, they are who they are, right? And of course, there's been a lot of energy spent in the history of humanity justifying the extra super special positions of specific human beings, whether or not they're deserving of that position, right? Well, it's because God chose them, right? God has divinely ordained that this specific person and anybody with their genes, even though we weren't aware of genes at that point in time, their bloodline gets to have this extra super special position. Line of David, yeah. Does that concept cause complications when we talk about the glory of God or the honor of God or the extra super special nature of God? Andrew. Yeah, that is pretty explicit in 1 Samuel. This is a bad idea. You're going to regret it. I told you so. Yeah, there's definitely that aspect. But historically speaking, right? And again, I'm leading us by the nose a little bit here, but is there complexity that's involved in distinguishing the majesty, the glory, the esteem, the respect due to a human authority versus how we apply those same concepts to the divine? Can it cause complications? It comes up in today's gospel text, by the way. Paul, you're kind of like shaking your head with a concerned look on your face. Yeah. Super special. Yeah. Yeah. And personality in a very broad sense of that word. Yeah. And personality. When we use that word, right? Who's somebody that has a lot of personality? Jesse. No, I don't know. I don't know whether I do or not. But personality meaning, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I hear Paul also using it in terms of personhood. Yeah. Yep. A blank. Yeah, theism versus deism. Yeah. And you're arriving at what we're going to talk about this morning as well too, which is hierarchy in human mechanisms, right? Has existed for time immemorial, right? Human beings establish hierarchies for the sake of order and blah blah blah. I can give you a long explanation on that. Often hierarchies include honorifics. They involve glorifying those at the top, right? Does the divine world, does God operate in that same manner? This is a question.
Does God demand?
That's kind of the question. Does God demand that same kind of thing? Well, and here's where it gets complicated, is that look at how we have historically, as human beings, structured religious institutions. And again, not to pick on Catholicism, because they're an easy target, but would you describe Catholicism as a flat leadership model? No. It's very hierarchical. Right? And that hierarchy, the higher you go up, is that an intentional? I don't know. The higher you go up a hierarchy, especially in the Catholic Church, do you ascribe glory, honor, esteem, respect? You ever watch interactions between the Pope and human beings? It's pretty remarkable. And again, not to denigrate or diminish, the Pope or his meaning to human beings, but this is where it gets complex. This is where it gets complicated, is we create human institutions that supposedly reflect or represent divine institutions. And the question is, when we talk about glory, honor, respect, esteem, are we deriving these things from the divine, or are we projecting them onto the divine? That's kind of the question. The throne of God. Yeah. Yeah. Well, but sorry, Jackie, were you going to say something? But that's interesting because, again, throne often is a metaphor, and a metaphor for glory, honor, respect, and esteem. The throne was the symbol of how great and good and powerful that king was, which is why you find thrones not being simple chairs but being gaudy. Gaudy is glory taken past the point of excessiveness, right? Or gaudy, it means people that don't actually understand something that is, lift. I mean, yeah. Oh, there's so much great symbology in there, right? Symbolism. Sorry.
They also use the throne as a God phrase, putting a placeholder.
How so?
Well, the throne of God.
Yeah.
Why does he have to be there?
Yes.
I mean, why are you saying he has to be there?
It comes up in today's gospel texts.
Oh.
James and John. Jesus, appoint us to sit at your right and left hands in glory. Literally the phrase there, in glory. Yeah.
So I guess my point of view is you're limiting.
Sure.
And I think you're humanizing.
Sure. Paul.
It isn't just monarchical, it's the
Nope.
monarchy and the court.
Yep.
It's the monarchy and the nobility. It's the monarchy and the aristocrat.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And yet humans tend to say, my tribe is exceptional. America
Is extra super special.
America is extra super special. And of course, Vladimir Putin, who's in Russia, is so exceptional that the world without him is unimaginable.
That's how you spell exceptional, right?
Right. But in every case, we clothe that in religious language, whether it's secular religious language, it doesn't matter. It's all religious language that says that somehow the universe, God, whatever, is the one who has chosen us to be this exceptional group. So much so that even just 10 Jewish men in a minyan can save the world. Yeah?
Yes.
I like that idea. If there's more than 10 of us here, we could save the world this time.
Yes. How so? Yeah. What's the assumption there? What's the assumption that we make when we glorify, honor, hold in esteem wealthy people? Blessed? Whoa. Yeah. And this is a bit of irony here, too. What did you just say, Susan? I was going to write that word blessed. Thank you. Put wealth here. Yes. Yes. But Pat, what you just said there indicates that your concept of blessed is different. In a good way, I would argue, in a good way. Because, and I've preached many sermons on this, right? Especially when we talk about the Beatitudes, right? Because that pesky Makarios pops up, the Greek word for blessed, which is complex. Sometimes it gets translated as happy, which is a Latin mistake in my mind. But how does blessed apply? Well, sometimes you would argue that wealth is an indication your blessed status. What's interesting about the word blessed is, by and large, from an ancient perspective, this means something specific. It means that the deities have chosen this human being in particular to provide glory and honor, right? That specific individual human being has been ordained or blessed by divine favor.
So in some, we're all given different talents, and some people are given the talent to make money.
And again, you're articulating something that would run counter to that definition, right? Because what you're saying, Pat, and again, don't let me put words in your mouth, but what I hear you saying is that being blessed, is not solely encompassed in receiving wealth. So let's do a quick pivot. Let's talk about this word for a second. This wasn't on our list, but it's a good word to talk about, and it relates very well to this word. How would you articulate your blessedness? How are the ways in which you are blessed? How many of you are blessed with grandchildren? How many of you would use that phrase? I've been blessed with grandchildren. Yeah. What does that mean? What does that mean when you say that? You have and again, we're going back to that idea. You have received a gift from the divine in the form of this little human being. Yeah. So you're articulating essentially that God gives favor in the form of grandchildren. Great.
But
I'm with
blessed
you.
as a child of his to do his work for others.
Oh, we're expanding. Cheryl, you're going too fast. No, it's okay. No, it's good.
That's what I feel, is that we're all blessed in our own
But
ways.
but you have taken us on a very good tangent.
We're on the good ship.
You are, and so what Cheryl articulated, for those of you who didn't hear, Cheryl articulated, I am blessed to be able to do X, Y, or Z for God.
Right.
You're blessed with.
I'm blessed
and-
to be able to do his work that he calls us to do.
Cheryl, a four-letter word. that four-letter word.
Work?
Yeah. How many of you are blessed to work?
Yeah.
Oh, but work stinks. Sorry, I'm playing the devil's advocate here a little bit. Warner.
So are we blessed beyond our own ability?
Oh,
Something that comes down on us, not because of anything that we possess, but because of something beyond us that
yeah. No, and Warner, you're asking that as a question a bit, but what you're articulating there, what you're asking, I think, is really kind of a core question that breaks this open, right? Because here's the thing. This was last week's sermon. When somebody articulates that wealth is an indicator of divine favor, and again, in a modern context, we wouldn't use those words specifically. We wouldn't say it's an indicator of divine favor, So, and not to pick on billionaires, but and I don't know if I've ever heard Elon Musk articulate anything remotely resembling gratitude. But let's not pick him. He's too volatile and easy. Yeah. I'm trying to think. Maybe Bill Gates. I don't know. I don't really pay attention to what these guys say as much anymore. But I'm sure there are billionaires who have articulated that my wealth is a blessing. But a lot of what that they're doing, a lot of the time, is they're trying to articulate why they deserve their wealth. Am I off base here? Yeah. Because, and again, I'm not to project anything, but when you articulate, I've been blessed with grandchildren, is there not at least a little bit, a sense of why I deserve grandchildren? A little bit. And not in a negative way. But here's one of the things that always comes up when we talk about blessed is contrast, right? Contrasting with, I have and I know people who do not have. So, and that's where we go. That's where we go because, well, I wrote judgment, but we need to justify, right? This is last week's sermon, all over again, right? Okay, this is a dangerous path to go down, because what Warner articulated is the inverse of that, which is that blessing is I have been favored by the divine regardless of whether or not I deserve it. Because here's the danger. If you say to a billionaire, your wealth is a fluke. Your wealth is a fluke. Maybe it's a gift from God, or maybe the system worked out in a way that favored you, right? Including the intelligence or lack thereof that you were gifted with, including your business acumen, that all of these things that you take for granted in your rise to wealth, all of those things are things you can't take credit for. That gets tough. That gets tough, because then you have to address the issue of, so I didn't actually do anything special. It's a combination of gifts that I was born with. It's a combination of the gift of the setting into which I was born in, and luck and work, right, that made me achieve this wealth. But actually all those factors are present in a lot of human beings who never arrive at wealth. You encounter this issue, which is that I don't necessarily deserve it more than anybody else, which can cause, crisis. And so what we tend to do is we go the opposite of the direction that Warner said, where we seek to say why we are extra super special, right? Why we are deserving of glory or honor to justify. And again, wealth is that's low-hanging fruit in a lot of ways. But why do I have 15 great-grandchildren, right? And my friend I picked Kathy, it's not you, Kathy, but you have a bunch. My friend Kathy had a daughter, and her daughter wasn't able to bear children, and so I find myself alone in my old age. Because I have done a lot of memorial services for people that have been alone, and it wasn't because they were mean or, non-personable people. It was because life ended up going that direction, right? So when we talk about being blessed, this is kind of the struggle of it, is that we encounter this thing that Warner's articulating, which is, I might not have done anything to deserve this, and what do I do with that? And this is the key part. Where do you go from there?
It's also being aware and helping yourself to be aware of the blessings that you have.
Oh, hugely, yes. I mean, and this goes hand in hand. I don't know why I keep changing marker colors. It doesn't matter. But awareness is a big part of this. Because if you're not aware of your blessedness, if you're not aware of the gifts that you have, it's hard to practice gratitude, right? Paul, do you want to, before you go to choir?
I love Luther's distinction between grace and vocation.
Yep.
And how they intertwine. Because it's the function. How does the word bless function? Am I using my blessing to using my blessedness to
Be a blessing.
or not?
Yeah.
That's the question of vocation. What is my calling with the wealth I have, with the talent I have, with the time I have? I just think keeping of Warren Buffett, who says, there's no reason I should be rich just because I'm good at capital.
Yeah.
But I have a job to do for these stockholders. And so he's serving his stockholders. That's what he sees as vocation. It's not as these, $170 billion.
Yeah, and it keeps on doing it. Yeah. The making the money is probably not. Go glorify. Go glorify. Yeah, Linda.
On the reverse side, what Paul said is the people who use their blessing to gain wealth on the backs of other people.
Okay.
Where is that blessing?
We're about to spoil today's sermon, which is okay. It's a good warm-up for me. because this is the core concept that we're going to confront today. So we might as well throw the text out there because it'll let you think about it before I have to talk about it. So today's text is, we're wrapping up. So we've been marching through Mark 9 and 10, basically in order, not skipping much, if anything at all. So if we go back to the beginning of Mark 9, we started with a story where, and this is all relating to this stuff, right? Glory, honor, esteem, respect, etc. Where the disciples are having a rigorous conversation amongst themselves over who is the most exceptional, right? So they're asking the question, who among us is the greatest? Which then prompts a teaching moment from Jesus, okay? And kind of the central metaphor that Jesus goes back to through the over and over again through these texts is the metaphor of the child, okay? It's central to Mark 9 and Mark 10. And we had a conversation about that's not about innocence, even though in some ways innocence is a good thing. It's about secondary status. So children in the ancient world are often not noticed for cultural reasons. It's not because first century Israelites didn't love their children as much as you love your children and your grandchildren, but children didn't live as long, or I shouldn't put it that way. Child mortality rates were higher, life expectancy was lower, and the pressures of meeting the needs of a growing family, especially in a society that's pre-industrialization and pre-capitalism, put a lot more stress, right? You needed workers that offset the number of mouths to feed that you had, right? So that society celebrated when you came of age, because that meant that you could now contribute, whether it was working or providing children, right? You lived. You made it through. You made it through the hardest part of the human life, which is getting to the point where you can feed yourself, right, and take care of yourself. And I mean, that's mammals in general, to a certain extent. I don't know why. I don't even know what I'm pointing at. I was talking about something completely different. So anyways, so that's the metaphor that Jesus keeps returning to, and he keeps saying to them, you need to be as a child, or don't get in the way of the child, especially in the next passage where the disciples encounter a guy who is casting out demons in Jesus' name, and they forbid him to do it. That's the word in the Greek. They forbid him to do it, and they come report back to Jesus, and they're waiting for their pat in the back, and Jesus gets really ticked, right? And we get Jesus saying, it would be better that you tie a millstone around your neck and cast it in the sea than to get between me and one of these little ones. Again, returning to that metaphor of children. And in this case, expanding that metaphor to include people who are outside the circle of inclusiveness that the disciples have assumed, right? Then last week, we returned to this issue of what was last week? It was wealth. It was the young rich man comes up to Jesus, says, what do I have to do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus says, give up everything. Give up everything because you clearly don't understand the blessed nature of the wealth that you have, and follow me. And of course, he runs away screaming. He doesn't run away screaming. He walks away despondently. But then Jesus pivots, and here's the interesting thing, to the disciples. And what do the disciples do? They justify themselves. So they say, well, Peter says, but obviously, Jesus, we have given up everything to follow you, right? So we're in, right? We did the thing, and then Jesus proceeds to dismantle that perspective as well, and closes with his famous way of confusing, which is the last will be first and the first shall be last. Okay. And then this week, we get another continuation of this, where James and John, sons of Zebedee, come to Jesus, and they demand of him that he place them at his right and left hands. Oh, sorry, left and right hands, right and left. I was doing stage right, stage left. His left and right hands in glory. That phrase is used. And Jesus asks them, are you capable? I'm paraphrasing. Are you capable of taking on that responsibility? Which, I love this part of Mark because I just hear so often a disappointed teacher. Like it rings through. Are you capable of doing this? Which, if they were good students and got the clues that Jesus was dropping for them, they would understand that he's not actually asking them a question, he's making a statement, right? No, you're not capable, right? But what do they say? Absolutely, we're capable of being baptized in your baptism. Absolutely, we're capable of drinking the cup that you drink from. And then Jesus kind of gives up, and he says, well, it's not mine to grant. But then he closes with this really interesting piece, where he contrasts the leadership of the world as it is versus the leadership of the disciples. And he uses you, right? He doesn't say we, he says, you are not this way. And he says, the Gentiles, and we'll talk about this in the sermon, the Gentiles have tyrants, right? The Gentiles have people who lord their power over others. You don't do that, okay? And he specifically says, the one who wants to be first among you must be servant or slave of all, right? Servant or slave of all, which is an intentional inversion of hierarchy, right? Okay? We're not lording over, we're serving under, okay? So all this stuff that we're talking about, whether it be glory, right? Honor. I mean, to a certain extent, even righteousness, blessedness especially, our extra super special status, right? Kind of the operating question here is, how do these things apply to us and how do they apply to God, and what is the significance of that, right? So the disciples are struggling with this idea that even though they have been selected, they have been chosen specifically to be part of Jesus's training team, they're struggling with whether or not they're extra super special and what that means. Because to them, what that means is how they've seen that reflected in their world, which is, if you're extra super special, you get a lot of money, and they put you on a throne, right? And people do what you tell them to, and you have power, right? And influence and status. That's what that means to them. And Jesus says, no. No, in the kingdom of God, it actually means the opposite. That being extra super special, going back to what Warner said, means that yes, you have been blessed, but that blessedness doesn't mean that we're going to put you on a throne, right? We're not going to put you on Super Bowl ads. You have been specially selected to help others. Okay? That's what Christian leadership looks like, okay? And that's different. Right? I don't want to say that it's tough, right? It's not tough. But, really quickly, we've got a couple more minutes. I've been talking. Let's go back to the grand, and not to exclude anybody, let's go back to kids and grandkids, okay? And whether they're kids that you birthed from your bodies, or whether they're kids that you adopted, or kids that have been part of your community, your neighborhood, or it doesn't even have to be an age difference, or people that you have journeyed with, right? How many of you have been blessed with special relationships in that regard? I think everybody, arguably, right? You have been blessed with companions. Maybe that's a good way to put it, okay? Of course, 4-year-olds, it takes a while till they start feeling like companions, right? I don't know. I've only watched this from the external perspective, but I know that that 2s and 3s can be a tough age. They certainly don't feel like companions then. That is the tough one. Yeah, I thought I was okay. But I remember my dad. My dad said this multiple times when Sean and I hit our 20s. He said, I don't think he put it this way, but I'm going to paraphrase. He loved us more as adults than he did as kids. That's not what he said. He was much more diplomatic about it. But one of the things he said is, I'm having more fun as a parent to adult children than I did as a parent to, diaper-bound, whiny little whatever. No, I'm again. But one of the natures of that relationship is you have been blessed with this companion, or blessed with these kids, or blessed with this special relationship, but it doesn't serve itself, right? Okay? Because if you don't give into that relationship, it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to wither and die, right? I mean, obviously with kids, if you don't feed them, they're not gonna get very far. But even thinking of the relational aspect of that, if you don't provide energy, how many of you feel like you served your kids? And again, not to restrict that definition. Yeah, 100%. 100%. How many of you at some point in the parental cycle questioned your decision to do this? Yeah, because it felt like all the energy is going one way. You feed them, you clothe them, you give your life and your love to them, and do they appreciate it? Right? Do they glorify you at all? Do they even honor you as their parents? Right? It's in the Bible. It says it explicitly. Honor thy father and mother, right? And you're not even you're not even getting acknowledgement, much less honor, right? But yeah, have you ever encountered, and again, I don't want to make this about kids or grandkids specifically, but have you ever encountered a scenario where that concept is not mutually understood by the two people in a relationship? Where the relationship in their minds was actually about how it feeds them, right? And there was no concept of serving or prioritizing the well-being of the other. How did that work out? Right? When it's and in some ways it's worse when it's just one person than when both of them, because if both people are in it for themselves, it doesn't last very long, right? Because if you want it to be all about you, you need to find somebody who's willing to put up with you, right? And we call those abusive relationships, by the way. But this is an example that works within a concept of human relations. What I would encourage you to imagine is how do we think about this in terms of, I don't know why I'm pointing at glory, but if we are in a relationship with God, how can we apply those same concepts, right? And again, it's summarized quite well in today's text, where Jesus says, this is not what Christian leadership looks like. It doesn't look like tyrants, right? It doesn't look like despots. What does Christian leadership look like? It looks like service. And he closes by saying, and I'm paraphrasing, and this is why I'm going to die for you, okay? This is why I'm going to die for you. So if we have been blessed, and if Paul were here, he'd be able to articulate the theology of grace as manifest through the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. But if we have been blessed by that relationship, the operative question then is, what is the way in which we return that blessedness, right? That's what's put in front of us. So. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for...
Thinking about the nightmare when the kids learn to drive.
And the countless sleepless hours that you have because they said they're going to be home at 10 and it's 10:30 and they aren't home yet, and there's no cell phones because they don't exist, and they didn't call before they left where they were supposed to be. I've never experienced that before. Thank you.
You're blessed to have Madeline.
I am blessed to have a beautiful wife and two wonderful dogs, absolutely. All right, thank you very much. So next week, just a reminder, Brandy and Chris are going to be here. If you can be here, please do. It's going to be a great presentation. Following week is our town hall meeting about money, about the corner property sale. Otherwise, we'll cross the next bridge when we get there. Amen? All right. Oh, and can we give Mike and Andy and Paul a thank you for hanging that giant TV up there? And Sarah. Sorry, I didn't mean to leave Sarah out. And doing it in such a way that it didn't fall and crack or anything like that. It didn't fall.